I'm going to show you in this video how to properly graph a line on a Cartesian plane. Now, in this question, it was from the worksheet on graphing inequalities. The thing about graphing inequalities is that you have to treat it like an equation first. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to just pretend like that alligator sign that you see over here, it doesn't exist. I'm just going to change it into a regular equal sign to help me graph it. So over here, I'm just going to change it to y equals negative x minus 5. And that's exactly what I'm going to graph. So forget about the inequality for now and just change it into an equation. You already know 1 point from this line. It's the b, right? This b over here tells you that it crosses the y-axis at negative 5. Or in other words, if you will, this here means that point 0, negative 5 is for sure a point on this graph. So I'm going to just draw that point over here at negative 5. So I know 1 point. But I need 2 points to draw my line. Otherwise, I can just draw lines whichever way I want on this graph. So I need a second point. Now, there's a worksheet that we did at the beginning of the year on graphing. And one of the ways to graph is to do a table of values. So I'm going to show you how to do it with a table of values. So if I make a table of values here, x and y, and I just draw it like this. And I'm just going to pick a bunch of random points for x, 1, 2, and 3, say. Now, I need to know when x is 1, what is y? So I'm going to take this rule here and I'm going to say, okay, let me plug in when x is 1. So I'm going to do y is equal to negative 1 minus 5. And that tells me that y is equal to negative 6 when x is 1. So here, I already have a second point. But just for the sake of this video, I'm going to continue. For example, if I pick x is equal to 2. So I'm going to do, okay, if x is equal to 2, then I'm going to do y is equal to negative 2 minus 5. Y is equal to negative 7. So over here, when x is 2, y is negative 7. Voila, you have another point. And the last point of x that I have here is when x is 3. So when x is 3, I can just say, okay, y is equal to negative 3 minus 5. Y is equal to negative 8. So when x is 3, y is negative 8. So look, I have 3 points right now that I can choose from. So I have 1 point, 2 point, and 3 points to choose from, in addition to the point that I originally knew from my graph. So I'm just going to pick number 1 here, and I'm going to plot it on my graph. So if I go to plot it on my graph, I go to 1, negative 6. And here it is. So in essence, my line is going to look something like, and let's see if I can do this in a straight line. It's going to look something maybe like this. Okay, going all the way through my graph. Okay, something like that. Okay, now you have your line. Now that's one way of doing it. Okay, another way of doing it is if we just said, you know what, let me pick some random x, any x, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. So if I rewrite out my rule here that I have, y is equal to negative x minus 5, and I'm going to just get rid of this for now because I'm going to write over it. And I say to myself, okay, I want to know what y is when x is negative 4. Okay, so using this rule here, I'm going to plug in this negative 4 as x, and I'm going to find my point for y. So if I do that, I'm going to get y is equal to negative 4 minus 5. Y is equal to 4 minus 5. Y is equal to negative 1. So over here now I know that when x is negative 4, y is negative 1. Remembering that here my b is still at this point here. Oops, is still at this point here. Now I know that this point here is also on the graph, and it's actually over here. So if I draw it, I guess it looks a little bit different from my first one, but a little bit more accurate, I would say. Sorry. That would be my line. Okay, so to draw a line, 1, use your b, and 2, find a second point. Okay, but here's the thing. I have what is here an inequality. It's greater than. So 2 things. 1, because it's greater than, not greater than or equal to, my line is going to have to be dotted. So it's not going to be a solid line. And secondly, because it's y is greater than, I am going to shade on top. So see how the inequality really only matters once you've done your actual line with the equation. So I'm, in fact, going to shade over here. So all of these points in this half plane here are the solution to the inequality y is greater than negative x minus 5. And like I said in class, if you are unsure of where you are shading, just pick any point on either side of the line, either a point here, you could pick point 0, 0 here, or a point here. And if your point, say 0, 0, makes the inequality true, then you shade on top. But if you picked point 0, 0 and it makes your inequality false, then you know to shade on the other side of the line. So how about we do one more example? So this is from the same worksheet that I gave you, except this time I have the inequality y is greater than 2x plus 5. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to change this into y is equal to 2x plus 5 for the sake of graphing. And we'll deal with the inequality once we've graphed it. So again, you know that your b is 5, which tells you that for sure one point on this graph is going to be 0, 5. So that's 1 point. But we need 2 points. So again, I'm going to draw a table of values, like so. I'm going to pick random x's. So how about we pick something like when x is 2 and when x is 4. I only need 2 points, so I don't need to like go overboard here and do like 15 x's. So if I do that, I'm going to see, okay, taking my rule, what is y when x is 2? Well, y is equal to 2, plug in my x is 2 plus 5. Y is equal to 4 plus 5. Y is equal to 9. So here, y is equal to 9. And over here, if I do 4, that's okay. Y is equal to 2 times 4 plus 5. 8 plus 5 is 13. But as I'm doing this, I realize that the graph that I've given you here, it won't fit your when x is 2, y is 9. So how about what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add maybe just like a separate column for something that might actually fit onto our graph. So how about I pick when x is negative 2, just to see that if it's on our graph here. So when x is negative 2, I would do y is equal to 2 times negative 2 plus 5, which is negative 4 plus 5, y is 1. So when x is negative 2, y is 1. So I'm going to pick this point here, and I'm going to plot it onto my graph, and I'm also going to take this point here, and I'm also going to plot it onto my graph. So first thing here, let's just make this a bit bigger, the 0, 5. So the 0, 5 means that, let me draw it in red, this is where I'm going to be crossing my y-axis, and when x is negative 2, y is 1. And so here, oops, here. So I would draw a line, bear with me here, like that. Okay, and that's using a table of values. Now, if you didn't want to use a table of values, you could just say, you know what, let me just pick a random point x, or even 0. It doesn't matter. Let me pick a random point and see where it would be. So you already know, so let me just rewrite out my rule. This is my rule. So again, if you don't want to do a table of values, you can do this. So say you already know 1 point here. You already know 0, 5. But what happens if I want to know, like, what is y when x is, say, negative 3? What is my y? So I say, okay, y is equal to 2 times negative 3 plus 5. Y is equal to negative 6 plus 5. So then y is equal to negative 1. So my second point is this. So now I have these 2 points here, which is pretty awesome. So if I have this point here and I have this point here, well, I shouldn't have done that in yellow. If I have that point here, that means I can plot it on my graph. So let me plot the negative 3, negative 1 first. So negative 3, negative 1 is over here somewhere, and my 0, 5 is here. And again, I just draw my line. Let me do it like this here. Okay, so my line is drawn. Now I can focus on the inequality. My inequality says greater than 2x minus 5. Greater than means my line is going to be dotted, not solid. And because it's greater than, I'm going to shade on top of my line. So I would take my shading here and I'm going to shade over here. And again, if you're not sure, you can always check by picking a point on either side of the line. And if you pick a point over here and it makes it true, you shade here. If the point makes it false or incorrect, you shade on the other side. And that's how you do it.